On the Blood Trail is brought to you by Man Mountain Company. Experience peak flavor.
Oh, freaking smoked them. Gorgeous 4x4, full velvet whitetail. Nothing. We got one. Yes! That is awesome. What a rush. That was crazy, man. How do you like that? Hey, how do you like that?
So it was a little bit of pulling teeth to get you to do this, because you don't think anybody would think that you're interesting, but I know that you're a wealth of knowledge. Today I've got my dad, Josh Slager, and we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about hunting. How you doing?
Well, I don't know if I should. I don't think I'm thankful for this opportunity or happy to be here just yet.
Well, I think we're going to have fun. It's we spent a lot of time together this fall, a lot of time chasing a good variety of critters.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Yeah, and you've had an admirable year from somebody standing back and watching. You think that it's your best year ever. What kind of season do you think you had?
Pretty spectacular, no question about it. A season that dreams are made out of.
Yeah,
for sure.
Is there let's run through what you got here. You got a couple of really nice whitetails. You broke the 200-inch club.
Yeah.
And with authority, 210 inches is quite a buck.
Incredible.
You got a really nice bull moose in a unit that's hard to get moose that size.
Yeah.
You got a screamer of a bull elk.
Yeah. Both
literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
He's a beauty of a bull, one of those ones that up in the age class, and you were able to give him some time to grow.
Yeah.
And actually get a bull of that caliber. Why don't we start there? Because I think that's where we started the year.
It was, and we had some trail camera pictures of him.
Mm-hmm.
Such a huge body bull. We actually didn't think he would be anywhere near as big antlered as what he ended up being.
Yeah.
Smart bull. We'd work him time and time again with the archery. Just could not put it together. He just wouldn't call. You'd get in on him, and he'd just zip her up. He wouldn't say anything. He'd moan, groan a little bit. That was it. And we knew at that time that was a really big mature bull.
Mm-hmm.
I laid eyes on him one morning, and he was about 50, 55 yards. I just seen his antlers above the willows. It was huge. That was actually, while we were actually hunting him, that was the only time that we actually laid eyes on him until actually the night that we shot him.
Yeah, because we went after him a lot with the bow.
Yep.
And I would do the collar thing, and you'd try to sneak up on him. And it seemed like every time that we would get to that point where most elk, that would be the barrier breaking zone,
yeah,
that he would pick up his cows and he'd go the other direction.
Yeah. Numerous times we had him at 20, 30 yards
yeah.
with the archery tackle. But the bush was so thick you couldn't see sometimes 10, 15 yards. And he knew that, and he played that into his advantage. And
yeah, and one thing that I thought was kind of interesting, because I try to study the different bugles that elk are doing, and that's something that you try to push on us more and more, is to focus on the types of calls, not necessarily just putting a call out there.
Right.
And I found that pretty much every time that bull bugled, it was telling his cows, let's go.
Yeah, we're leaving.
Yeah. It had nothing to do with I want to fight or even entertaining the fact that we were pretending to be a competitor in his area. He just wanted to take his cows and leave. He wanted to be left alone.
Yeah, those older bulls do that a lot. They're not sociable. They know they're the big guy in the woods, so they don't have to prove to anybody else that they are. They hate the little bulls. They don't really want much to do with them, and a lot of times they just pack up and they want to move. But yeah, he was a lot of fun. I love bulls like that. They're very hard to figure out. It's too bad we didn't get him with the archery tackle. There was one morning that we thought we were going to get a chance at him anyway, and he pulled a slip at the last second.
Yep.
And that was it. But we were trying not to blow him out of that area. So it's difficult when you're trying not to blow them out of an area. You want them to feel comfortable where they're happy. Mm-hmm. And we were trying not to get too much human scent in there.
Yeah.
knowing that, with the archery stuff, if it didn't work, then, when the rifle season started, that maybe we'd have a better chance of getting him. And so we were kind of tentative not to push him too hard, which maybe some guys would have anyway and would have maybe had success with the archery. But I'm not so sure. Those big old bulls, they get big like that for a reason. They get old for a reason. They're not stupid.
Yeah, and when we did catch him, it was like with the rifle, and you shot him that night. That was... by all accounts, it wasn't easy.
No, it was a hard push to get them.
Right, because the bush that we were hunting that they were coming out of to feed, it's quite long.
Yeah.
And the herd was very spread out. How many elk were in that herd about?
Man, I don't remember. Was it 30, 40 of them?
Yeah, I thought there was at least 40 of them. And I remember we were sitting on one point there where it kind of goes back into a cove of willows, and cows came out, fed right towards us, and then more cows came out way further down where you ended up shooting the bull, and we thought, well, we're not going to be able to get past these cows. And by the end of the night, after multiple cows and bulls came out right in front of us, we just decided to make a push for it, and the cows seen us running through the edge of the trees, which I thought was amazing that they didn't care.
Well, there's, the couple of tactics that we've tried over the years that I learned kind of by default, and how to make an elk actually think that you're almost an elk just by how you hold your arm up. And for those that have the cameras on right now, you can see if you hold your arm up like this, it looks like the snout of an animal.
Yeah, and that does help.
It's incredible. I tried it one time on an open face. I had an elk bedded 60 yards below me, and I didn't, I come over this little knob, and it was like right there. It's like, oh, bummer, like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And I mean, it was keyed on me like right now, and I was chasing the herd bull, and it stood up, and it was about to blow, and that's and the first thing I thought is like, well, if I put my elbow up really close or really fast, it looks like the snout of an elk. I put my elbow up, and that elk, it actually laid back down.
Yeah.
And it settled down, and then it never blew the herd out of there.
I've seen you do that with deer too, where you just put your hand in front of your nose that looks like another deer's nose, and it seems to kind of take them off edge sometimes.
It's a shape that changes.
Yeah, that's true, because they see you standing there, and they're not used to something standing there linear like that, I guess. And we ended up getting up nice and close, and that bull started kind of weaving through the cows as he was pushing them out into the field, and all of a sudden you just had a window.
You had a window. When that window presents, boy, you better be ready.
Yeah, and you drilled him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't make it very far.
No,
he didn't like that 7mm.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was tremendous. And that was one of those critters that when you walk up on him, there was a lot of ground growage.
Yes.
Lots.
Yeah, I remember that too. We couldn't, and still to this day, I can't get over the mass on that.
Yeah, he's got 9.5-inch bases.
Yeah,
well,
that's
not
incredible.
even. That's his C1. That's his first circumference is 9.5, which is outstanding for here. Outstanding.
Yeah, that's fantastic because it makes his points look short.
Yeah.
Right, and just an incredible bull, and it's a struggle to get them to grow that big. In areas in Alberta, I'd say
heavy
majority.
pressure.
Yeah, majority of the province is very pressured.
Heavy pressure.
Especially now, everybody's an elk hunter.
Well, and it's 3-point bull or bigger.
Yeah.
And most guys, they're perfectly happy with a legal bull. Mm-hmm. And so, they get hit pretty hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was pretty cool. And then after you got done with that, we went hardcore after moose for you.
Yeah.
You got drawn. It took how many years to get that tag?
Only 5 this time.
That's not bad. I think the last time it took me 7 or 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
but our numbers are low.
this is true. Yeah.
Numbers are really low. We had ticks for 2-3 years in a row now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't know what moose ticks are. They don't have to deal with them. But here in Alberta, we get hit hard with them. And, some years we can lose 90% of our moose.
Yeah, I remember a couple springs ago when I was up here during seeding season, and there was dead moose on the side of every field.
Right. Yeah, and so, the numbers are down. It's not that there is no moose. It's just you have to dig really hard to find them.
And we did.
Yeah. Oh, hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Steep and deep.
Yeah, we dug really, really hard. And I remember, I don't even know how many days in it was. How many days did we figure we hunted for that moose? It was 20.
I don't know.
Close to 20 days.
I guess it would have been all together, yeah.
Yeah. And from the archery season into October.
Right.
Right. And by the time we finally got that moose, it was, I felt like we were kind of just going through the motions. It wasn't like we were going out there expecting to see moose anymore. We had kind of seen every phase of the rut.
Yeah.
And we even saw specific moose at every phase during the rut that we'd run into over and over again.
Yeah. But it was never like the jets were on full bore. It was kind of a tough rut. Like they would kind of start and then they would peter out, and then they'd start and peter out. It was very difficult to get them to do what moose normally do. Mm-hmm. usually you see them, as their heads are shaking back and forth or whatever, swaying as they walk in. And we had a really hard time getting moose to commit to do that. We called a lot of bulls in for the type of year we had and the population of moose. I think we had like 12 pretty good encounters.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd say, I don't know, you could correct me if I'm wrong, 4 or 5 of them were quality bulls.
Quality bulls, yeah.
The one that really sticks out to me, and when you're talking about how it wasn't really a full bore moose rut, was that one spot that we went to where somebody had kind of told us that they saw a really nice bull chasing a cow, and we went in there looking and
found them right away.
We stepped on their toes, and it was a bull with 2 cows, or 2 bulls with a cow. I can't remember.
2 bulls with a cow, yeah.
And we just couldn't get him to come in.
Nope.
It was like that cow, and being close to that cow was all that moose cared about. And I still remember too, when we pushed them so far apart from each other, and then we got up on that one cut line, and then we were just sitting there waiting, and all of a sudden he was on the cut line in front of us.
Coming back to his cow.
And we tried our very hardest to cut him off, and it just didn't happen. And we even went in there a few more days after that trying to stir him up, and just couldn't catch him.
Incredible. Yeah. It's pretty uncommon that in the peak of the rut that you can't at least get another look at him. But that one there, that was the only time that we actually seen him or had any encounters with him.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
And then after that, we kind of, I feel like we kind of got desperate, and we started going down into the big, deep draws.
Well, we had been dabbling in them already a bit. I mean, we were hiking lots, 6-8 miles a day, putting on quite a bit of elevation, and it pays off, though. Like, you've got to get to the areas where most guys are not willing to go.
Yeah.
If you want to get the exceptional next level type animal, next age bracket, and
yeah, where we hunt, there's a lot of valleys and different elevation changes that way, and the moose can really hide down there.
Yes, they do.
And for whatever reason, it seems like out of every critter that's in this area, that moose are the one that don't really have to come to the top.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of feed down there and cover and water. Moose need the water, and there's lots of water down there, lots of cover, lots of feed. They're pretty happy down there,
and one, I think that an encounter that would put it into perspective when guys are thinking about how far their calling is effective.
Right.
That one day we were sitting overlooking that river bottom, and you were calling away, and I caught a glimpse of something, and it was like 1.5 miles away on the rangefinder.
Yeah, incredible.
And it was a nice bull moose.
Yeah.
And you called again, and he turned and started running that river bottom right towards us.
Yeah, and he would have probably come and landed on our lap, except for that at about 800 yards, he intercepted another moose. And that's what ended that moose hunt. Yeah. He got all tangled up, and that was it.
And then we had seen one kind of on I don't even know what you call it, across that valley. That was like almost like a slash, where a bunch of windfall and.
Yeah, it was kind of like a landslide or something, a mudslide of some sort happened at one time.
And there was a couple of moose that were always on that face, but there was never a bull with those cows.
Man, I was convinced there was a monster.
I know.
Over
You
there.
kept saying, "Let's go back, let's go back." We went back over and over again, and it was funny because from the morning to the evening hunt, we didn't really do much in the middle of the day because we were busy.
Yeah.
And we went back, and it was still in the exact same place. It didn't even move.
Same, yeah, incredible.
And
made me think there was a big bull right
exactly.
there.
You think like the bulls are wandering up and down that system, and they didn't notice that. It seemed almost impossible.
Yeah, I think it was just a cow and a calf found a secret hiding hole.
Yeah,
they're like, forget about it. No bull will find us here.
Yeah, obviously, because we never did find one.
Nope.
So then, I guess go to the day that you shot your bull.
Yeah,
and I remember you saying that this is the magic spot and whatever else. And you told me before we went out, you're like, I've seen some really nice bulls down here.
Yeah.
And I don't know how optimistic you really were.
Very. That's the crazy part about me. Every morning I get up, I'm super excited to get out there.
Which is good.
Yeah.
I remember I was just in it to fall. I was really hoping that after all of the days of following you around with the camera that we were going to be able to put an end to that story.
Right.
And we got down onto that knoll, and you were calling, and we thought we heard something smash and brush. And I don't know if it was an elk or if it was a bear. Maybe it was a moose.
Yeah.
And we got all the way down there where we could see straight to the bottom. And it's aggressive, right? You did a short edit of that video, and I know some people told me, they're like, how in the world did you get that out of there?
Yeah, it was fun.
It was fun. Yeah, that's one way to put it. And you're calling away, and nothing was responding. And I remember you being like, well, I guess we'll go back to the truck. And we turned around, and how far did we make it? 5-6 steps?
Yeah, not very
Just
far.
back over the next tiny little rise.
Yeah.
And I remember looking down to see where I was stepping. And you're like, Tyler, bull, there's a bull.
Yeah.
And I just hit the ground as soon as I could and look up. And sure enough, you could just see the big paddles just staring at us. And I was like, there's no way.
Yeah, shocker moment.
Right? Because we've been looking for a bull like that
Yep.
the entire time.
I know, and then all of a sudden there he is.
And the first really, really good look that we got
Yeah.
was a shooting opportunity.
Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah.
And I remember you got down and you got ready real quick.
Yeah.
And I got on him with the camera and you asked me if I was on him. I was like, yep, you bet.
Yeah, ice time. You know, that's the thing. Like that's why I never give up. Every day I wake up, I can hardly wait to get back out in the woods, because just at that time when you think it's not going to happen, that's the day it's going to happen.
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah, and you put a lot of bullets into that moose.
Man, that thing was tough.
It was tough.
But you know, the thing is, like, the country that we were hunting in, if that moose was going to go for a death run, it was going to be a nightmare. Times a million.
We would have been getting him out for a few days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would not have been very nice.
You know, some people don't think that it's ethical to keep shooting, but hey, you know what? That's too bad. I'm going to keep shooting.
Well, the idea is to make the most ethical kill that you can, and if that means you have to shoot the animal more than once, I don't see why you wouldn't do that.
We didn't realize it at the time when I first shot that bull. I was like, well, maybe I'll just shoot him the once, because, you know, it was a good shot. It was quartering to us in the shoulder. Come to find out, when we deboned him, that bullet actually never entered his chest cavity. It basically imploded on his shoulder, and it never went any further. We didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
And on a 7mm 162 grain, it was a Hornady ELDX. I would have just assumed that bullet would have entered his chest cavity, but it didn't do it. And in hindsight, it was a great thing that we kept shooting.
Because how far was it? It wasn't like it was that far.
200.
Exactly. Right, like you're expecting your bullet should perform well, at least up to 300-400 yards before you notice any sort of difference.
And it has. I mean, that was a big frame bull, huge
Yes.
frame bull. So I mean, he was going to absorb a lot of shock. But having shot numerous elk and, you know, other big game animals, bears, you know, we've had tremendous success with that bullet. Holds great weight retention. It's a good bullet. But just that one time on that bull moose must have been just the way that it hit that shoulder blade, and it ate it up.
Yeah, no, absolutely it did. And I still can't even explain. I mean, as a hunter, you know, but the feeling of relief and excitement when you watch that animal go down. Like, we spent so many days for that one specific moment and that one opportunity. And, I mean, hats off to you. You made it count. Right?
Well, you know, I think where it starts is before season on the range. You know, being comfortable, confident, you know, with your weapon. I think that's where it starts. And then when you get that once so-called in a lifetime chance, you make it count, right? Like,
well, I remember,
not that I don't screw up once in a while, but, you know, you...
Sure, yeah. And I remember when I was a kid and you were starting to get us into hunting, and we spent a lot of time at the range, and you struggled really hard with target panic. And I remember being at the range, and some guy came over to help you, and he did the blank cartridge thing, where they put a blank in the rifle to see if you'd flinch. And that kind of helped a little bit. And then now you're at the point where you can shoot 600-700 yards and you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, but you know, like, so this is the thing about shooting long range, what I've found. The anticipation of waiting for the gun to go off is what causes a lot of people to have target panic. The problem, when you buy a rifle over the counter, factory rifle, before it's been worked on, you got a lot of creep in the trigger and a lot of weight. And so, you know, I like to exaggerate when I talk about it, but if you have an inch of creep and 9 pounds of trigger, there's not too many people that aren't going to flinch or have target panic, trigger panic, whatever you want to call it. So for me, the first thing that I do now when I buy a rifle is I get it worked on. I get it modified. If I have to put a new trigger in it, we put a new trigger in it, but I like a light trigger with no travel. You know, when I want to make that shot, and I want to touch the trigger, I want it to go off. I don't want to sit there like I have to put a 1.5 ton come along on it and squeeze forever until the thing finally decides to erupt. You know, that's the number one, you know, recipe for disaster is a heavy trigger with lots of travel.
Yeah, I noticed that too, because I've killed a few animals with your rifles over the years, and that's one thing. It's always a hair trigger.
Right, I want it to be a surprise.
Which is a good thing, because I find that when you start to squeeze the trigger is probably where your crosshairs are where you want them to be. And if it's a heavy trigger pull, by the time it goes off, you've moved off of that point.
Great. And I feel like that's solved my problem of target panic, is definitely having a light trigger with no travel. I would strongly recommend that for everybody.
Yeah.
Yep, 100%. If you want to improve your shooting ability, number one, fix your trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say most people can never outshoot their gun. I can't outshoot my gun. Guns are really accurate. They're really good for the most part. Once in a while you get a lemon out of the box, but not often. But if you have a good trigger, good weight, no travel, you'll do really well. I guarantee it.
So your main rifle that you use now, it has a heavy barrel on it. Do you find that kind of helps with your shooting?
Yeah, for sure. It makes you
Stability?
steadier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I find that and this is the other thing too about it. Once you get used to shooting a heavy barreled gun, it becomes very difficult to switch over to like a mountain rifle.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you don't have anything in your hand. And believe it or not, it makes a huge difference. So whatever you're going to hunt with the most, I would say practice with that the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's hard to switch from one to the other. It really is. I have found that. Yeah.
What about going from you used to hunt a lot with a 300 Win Mag,
Yeah.
and now you're more into the 7mm Rem Mag?
Yeah.
You find that was more just for an accuracy thing, or was there a reason that you wanted to try that out?
Yeah, I would say if you look at the ballistics, I guess, of a 7mm versus a 300 Win Mag, the 7mm carries, great downrange, energy and feet per second, actually better than 300 Win Mag. Not by much, but a little bit. And I don't know. Good friend of mine there, he's really big into 7mm, and he kind of talked me into it. And so, I mean, look, when I was a kid growing up, if you've seen anybody with a 300 or 7mm, you're like, what in the world do you need that for? Back in those days, it was 270, 30-06, yeah. Now, if you've seen somebody in camp with a 300 or 7mm, you always tease them they need wheels for that thing because it was like a cannon.
Yeah, they're bringing it around to hunt buffalo or something.
Yeah, but in all honesty, 7mm 300 Win Mag, I love those two calibers for everything. Coos, deer, you name it, bear, doesn't matter, right? Like it's for me, it's a good gun for everything.
Yeah, the results speak for itself, right? I mean, you shot a Coos deer last year over 600. Was it 660 yards? Something ridiculous.
Yeah, like 667. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a long ways away on a deer that's probably half the size of what our deer are, even smaller.
Yeah, they're very small. But I attribute that shot to the setup of my rifle.
Absolutely.
Right, you need to have the thing that I found about long range shooting, especially in the field. Like, I mean, of course, in a range, on the range, you're on a bench, rest, right? So it really changes the dynamics of your shooting ability, right? In the field, what I found is you need a bipod on the front of your rifle, and you need something to firmly fix the back stock of your rifle so that you're virtually not touching it with yourself.
Yeah.
It has to be rigid, solid, set for those long range shots. And in the mountains, like when you hunt coos deer, they call it the poor man's sheep hunt. So you're basically in the mountains and big hills. You have the terrain that allows you to be able to shoot down. You can get your bipod out. You get your stock rested up nice and tight, and on the rocks and stuff. It works really well. But that's the thing about shooting far. You need a solid rest. In fact, when I was younger, I never used to have a bipod on my rifle or carry around a trigger stick because I just thought it was, whatever. I'll just find a tree to lean on or whatever. Lay on the ground, throw my pack down. But I found as I got older, I love having a trigger stick for the inconvenience and nuisance of carrying it, and a bipod on the front of your rifle. It's far worth it. It really, truly is.
Yeah.
I've taken some pretty fantastic critters over the years by having that with me instead of, I don't feel like carrying this in the woods today. You know?
Because it is a bit of a nuisance.
Yeah, of course it is,
Right.
yeah.
But I think part of, too, what makes that not so bad is the fact that we're so used to hauling camera equipment around, and tripods are much heavier and more cumbersome, and the cameras, and then a bipod, the trigger stick on top of that.
Right.
So you almost feel kind of naked when all you have is the gun and the trigger stick.
If your pack's not 40 pounds, you feel like you're not doing enough, right?
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, and having that solid rest is so important, because I think that a rifle shoots perfectly until you touch it.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I always say that my equipment shoots much better than I do.
No
right?
kidding, yeah.
Because
mine,
in reality, there's no flaws when you have it set up right.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So 200 inches. You've been hunting for a long time,
I have.
and you've killed a lot of animals
Yes.
and a lot of really nice deer.
Yeah.
Two of which of your biggest you didn't even get to bring home,
Yes.
and that's I still can't believe that.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody else has had luck like that.
Literally, they were, I guess, technically both stolen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one stings more, the number 13 or the other one?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, number 13, yeah. That one stung a lot. I hunted for that deer hard, really hard. I knew of him. I had caught glimpses of him. He was super smart. The morning that I actually got him, it was muzzleloader season, shotgun, like primitive weapon season. And I actually rattled him in. And I would say in my life, of all the years I've hunted, which is a lot, that's the most buck fever I've ever had in my life. By far, I was rattled. In fact, when that deer stepped out at like 60 yards, I couldn't even hold my crosshairs on his chest. And fortunately, he walked toward me. And I shot him at probably 15, 18 yards and dropped him right in his tracks.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And he turned out to be, 200 plus, typical 5x5. The problem was, when you're in the woods hunting, you're not looking for tags in deer's ears.
No.
Right? So I walked up on this deer, and there was a green number 13 tag in his ear.
Yeah.
And at the time, I'm like, what in the world is this? I didn't even know anything about it. So when I went to the landowner, he was going to give me a key for the gate to get in there and drive in and pick up this buck. And I said, the funny thing is, this deer's got a green number 13 tag in his ear. Oh, he says, well, that's so-and-so's deer got out of his tree, or out of his deer farm. A tree fell over, knocked the fence over, and the deer got out. Come to find out, there was like a number of bucks. I think it was 8 or 9 different bucks that got out.
Yeah.
And the one that I actually shot that day was the prize buck of that farm. What was interesting about that deer, though, was like he knew that everybody was after him.
Yeah.
And they were probably 5 or 6 miles from that deer farm, where he was anyway. And I never knew that deer farm. It was down a dead-end road that I never drove down because there's no hunting signs everywhere, so why would you go down there?
And it wasn't like he just got out of there.
No, he had been out for weeks.
Yeah.
Weeks. And come to find out, it was his prize deer, and a monster, just a monster, heavy, big old rack buck. Knew everybody was after him, so he was extra cagey.
Yeah.
And so I did the right thing. I contacted the deer farm and let them know that I got their deer, and they appreciated it. And Fish and Wildlife came out, and they wanted to do a sample for chronic wasting disease because it came out of a deer farm. And this is a true story that won't actually get me a lot of pats on the back from Fish and Wildlife, but this is true. They confiscated the whole deer. Not really confiscated it, but they took it. They seized it.
You said they were going to return it later.
They were going to return it later after they did their tests on it. And a few months later, I hadn't heard nothing, so I contacted Fish and Wildlife to find out what happened to it. And we'll give you the deer back. And so when I met with them, they had put it in a freezer and froze it solid for months, and the head was cut off.
Yeah, I remember that. And I was too young to hunt myself.
Yeah.
But I remember you talking about this massive deer you shot, and then we went to go get it, and there it was headless.
Headless. And, and this is a fact,
Yeah.
At Fish and Wildlife, at the time, I was like, where's the head? Well, we lost it. Seriously, that's what they told me. How do you lose a head?
You cut it off first.
Yeah. And you know what they told me? Well, we've confiscated a lot of nice bucks this year, so you're welcome to come down to the freezer and you can have whichever one you want. And that's a fact. That's a fact. And I said, that doesn't mean anything to me. Those deer mean nothing to me.
No, you weren't hunting those deer.
No, could care less, right? So, long story short, the biggest, by far, typical buck I've ever shot in my life. I know, I don't even have a picture of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing, isn't it?
And then the other one that you shot that was stolen too, you don't have a picture of that one either.
Nothing, no. But, I didn't actually even know what happened, actually, to be honest with you. Like we followed the blood trail and there was no deer.
Yeah.
No deer. It was completely gone. And you just thought, well, maybe the blood sealed up, but there's no way. It was a great shot. It was, close, nice, beautiful buck, man. What a monster.
But you found a spot where you thought it looked like the deer probably had died.
Yeah, we were 100% sure that deer died right there, but it was just gone. And you're like, well, and then, you doubt yourself. You say, well, I don't know. Well, maybe. Anyway, a couple of years later, I was asking for hunting permission nearby, and I'd seen this deer rack on this mantle leading up to the house there between the garage and the house. And I knew right away that was the buck that I shot. I had seen the buck, and he was 9 points on one side, 10 on the other. Non-typical, but just a beauty, a monster buck. Scored over 200 inches. And I asked the guy when he knocked on the door, I said, that's a nice buck you have there. Oh, yeah, thanks. I said, did you shoot that? He goes, no. I said, well, let me tell you, you found it. And I pointed across the road to the specific bush to where that deer died.
Yeah.
And he's like, get off my property.
If you're a flavor fanatic, you need this seasoning in your life. Get ready for a taste explosion. Meet the Peak Blend from Man Mountain Company. This isn't just any seasoning. It's the ultimate flavor booster for every dish. Imagine your beef, pork, chicken, or fish bursting with incredible taste. But wait, there's more. Peak Blend is perfect for veggies, eggs, popcorn, fries, and even wild game. It's like having a magic wand in your kitchen. Whether you're grilling, smoking, or just whipping up a quick meal, Peak Blend turns ordinary into extraordinary. Think about it. Every bite, an adventure in flavor. So why settle for bland when you can have the best? Head over to manmountainco.com and order your Peak Blend today. Your taste buds will thank you. Remember, with Peak Blend, every meal is a masterpiece. Don't miss out. Get yours now.
Yeah, and I actually tried to contact the authorities, Fish and Wildlife, RCMP, and they wouldn't do nothing about it. And then probably rightfully so, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the two experiences that I had, and yeah, that's the way it goes. So then this year,
No, not even this year.
right? Last year, yeah,
Right. We had a deer that we were hunting for.
Yeah.
And
monster.
and we've talked about this story a little bit with some people here and there, and it's it makes me so mad because we were after this buck for 2 years.
Yeah,
And the first year, he only showed up in daylight one time on our cameras.
Right.
And we totally lucked out finding it.
yeah,
Right? And as we've discovered now, they don't really have that big of a home range.
no,
Right? So unless you stumble into their bedroom, you're
Right.
probably not going to know that they exist.
right,
Right? And this is very area specific too, right? This isn't just everywhere. I mean, I just saw a buck here the other day that we just saw miles upon miles of the other direction.
right,
Right? But where we were hunting these big monster bucks, they don't travel that far.
no,
And nobody got him.
Mhm.
He was easily a 200-inch deer,
yeah,
easily. And that was 2 years ago. So last year, I think that he regressed a tiny bit, but he probably still scored about the same. He's probably high 190s, 200-inch deer, somewhere in there.
Well, the guy that ended up getting him actually claimed that he was over 200.
Well, of course.
Which, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say he would have been 2
Yeah.
to 205, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah,
But the day that I sat in the very first time I ever sat in that tree,
I know.
he walked by me
And the funny thing about
in broad
that
daylight.
is that all of us knew he was there,
Yeah,
but that's such a low chance of seeing anything spot that I wanted to go sit somewhere where I knew that we had lots of nice bucks. Not monster bucks, but nice bucks.
yeah,
And so I thought, no, I'm not going to sit there.
yeah.
Ryan had a deer that he wanted to go sit after. And Spencer was there too. He was like, nope, I really want to shoot
So I
this
got
one
the
specific
hand-me-downs.
deer. And so you got the hand-me-downs of the only 200-inch deer we had on camera
And he waltzes right by.
right by it, like 20, 25 yards.
Yeah, yeah, and it was windy that day,
So windy.
blowing like probably 40 mile an hour.
I remember it was so
literally.
bad that I got out of my tree because I thought I was going to get blown out.
Oh, I
of
thought
it.
my tree was going to snap in half.
Yeah.
It really did. It was that bad.
It was not a good tree. I sat in there the one
Yeah.
day after you left,
Yeah,
and it wasn't even like it was an expected encounter,
not at all.
right? And he comes strolling by in the middle of the day.
Yeah, an hour and a half before dark, yeah.
Yeah.
And, he stood there at about 40, 50, probably 50 yards, I guess, for the longest time.
Yeah,
And, mesmerized, but cautious,
yes,
but sort of rutting,
yeah,
and there I am, just, like, wow, how is this possible? That is the buck.
yeah,
And, he kind of tinkled his antlers a bit on the trees there, kind of made a little bit of a rub and a scrape, and
yeah.
and then he circles and disappears and walks out right in front of me in the most perfect shooting lane in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't going to videotape it, but I'm like, no, you better turn the camera. And I actually thought, well, I better turn the camera, so I did.
Yeah.
And I come to full draw, and when I released my arrow, I heard something on my bow, like it fell.
Yeah.
Not
Not your first thought, though.
Not my first thought. At first, I didn't know what happened, right? But I heard something, and in the back of your mind, it's there.
Yeah.
And my arrow goes low left, And I'm like at 22, 24, whatever yards.
Yeah, it was like an
That's
inch,
impossible.
inch or two below his belly.
Yeah, how's that possible?
Yeah.
And I turn white as a bed sheet, and I just sit back in my tree and like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, how's that possible? I
Well,
want to
because
take the video camera and smash it, throw it out of the tree. You know what I mean? I want to take my bow and huck it. You know, like, I'm just, are you kidding me?
Right.
So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I've been bow hunting for 35, 36 years, long time. And, like I get buck fever like the best of them.
Yeah.
But, I can usually hold it together at the
That's
moment
why we
of truth.
hunt.
Right. Like if I didn't get excited, I wouldn't hunt. But usually at that specific moment, you can hold it together just barely enough to make it work good.
Yeah.
And I grab my bow because I want to see, like, okay, what's going wrong here? I grab my bow and I'm old fashioned. I get it. I shoot a whisker biscuit. Not some, I have shot drop away rests and all the rest of that. And it's just too much going on for me. I just rather shoot something simple, keep it simple,
A lot
stupid.
of animals
right?
have died.
Yeah, the
with
KISS
whisker-
rule for dad, right?
Yeah,
Keep
sure.
it simple, stupid. So I'm looking at my bow and I shake it a little bit and a little rattle. I'm like, okay, my whisker biscuit fell down. I don't know if it was the 40 mile an hour winds all day that were howling, shaking my bow around a little bit, just rattle, rattle, rattle with my arrow on the string.
Just the vibration.
I guess, I don't know. But when I shot, my whisker biscuit fell down and it shot underneath that deer. I lost a lot of sleep over that. I mean, who wouldn't? Like, how many chances you get a 200-inch buck in your life? I mean, come on.
Yeah, no. Well, and when you're sitting there and the first good buck you have come in is the buck.
The buck,
The
man.
one buck that you want to get out of all of the ones we have on camera.
Right.
And then you send it right underneath of them. And it's a buck of a lifetime.
I always think of 1,000 lifetimes,
Absolutely.
right? And it's like, so how's that ever going to repeat? And I'm telling you, man, for days, weeks, months, literally months.
Absolutely.
Actually, it even bites hard now, even though it's been over a year now.
Yeah.
It still bites hard. I guess probably the only thing that makes me sleep better is I shot one bigger.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was an interesting story too. We're we're close to there, not very far.
Yeah.
And we found a spot where we thought, you know what, this looks like a good place and somewhere that we thought deer would probably travel, bucks specifically.
Right.
Having no idea.
Yeah, that he was there.
Right? Because out of all the other bucks we had on camera in that area, we never had anything that kind of even came close.
Yeah.
Right? And then the first good buck to show up on this camera,
Is this ridiculous, non-typical buck?
which we didn't even think was a 200-inch deer.
No,
to
we
begin
didn't.
with.
At first, when I scored him, I'm like, you're looking at the camera pictures, you're like, that thing's going to go over 170.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
we were
then
between that 170 and 180.
Yeah, and then I'm sitting there that one night, I'm like, I think he's going to go 180, 190.
Yeah.
I thought 180, 189 actually is what I thought.
Because you don't see a whole lot of deer while you're sitting there, so you're sitting there thinking about the deer that are there.
Yeah, and I actually hauled my phone out and looked at some of the trail cam pictures, and I'm scoring him sitting there and thinking, okay, well, if he's this and that and blah, 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 I get maybe 189 out of him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that night he walked out in front of me.
Yeah, exactly, right? And the funny thing, too, was because I remember going into the night, you told me, you're like, you know what, I don't know which buck I'd want to shoot. I think I'd rather shoot the one with the nice brow tines.
Yeah.
Because we had another one there.
Thinking this one just young and had a lot of future. And
Right? We were thinking maybe he's going to turn into something ridiculous next year.
Right.
Not thinking he's ridiculous this year. Right? And I didn't sit that night because the wind was bad for where I wanted to sit. And I wanted to give myself a better chance.
And the night before I was in the hospital.
Yes.
Because I had the most ridiculously bad flu I've had in my life.
We're getting ready to go to bed in the hotel.
Yeah, and I just I can't take this anymore. I cough my guts out.
You're like, hey, Tyler.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah? You want to take me to the emergency room? I'm like,
Are you kidding me?
are you feeling okay?
Obviously
not. No.
Yeah.
And so we took you to the emergency room. That was a late night. And we got at it the next day, go to sit. And the other thing, too, talking about how you missed the one the previous year, and it was the buck that we wanted to kill, right? Like this one that you got, it was the buck that was obviously at the top of our hit list.
Right.
And having other nice bucks in the area, you just kind of expect to shoot a nice buck. Like we aren't out there trying to shoot 200-inch deer.
No, not at all. Yeah.
And or even 160-inch deer.
Right.
something that comes in and with archery tackle,
Yeah.
right, to get something that's Pope and Young or better is usually a pretty good accomplishment, right?
Right.
And you would have probably shot something much smaller if it would have walked in first.
100%. Like, we're not trophy hunters. I mean, do we all
Yeah.
dream of shooting monsters? Of course we do, like everybody else, but that's not why we're there.
No, we hunt because we love to hunt.
That's right.
And it just so happened that Redemption walked in.
Did he ever? I'll tell you what, though, when he walked in,
Yeah.
it was next level buck fever. Like,
Absolutely.
next level. And I had the hardest time in the world holding the right pin on. I'm telling you, man, that's the hardest I've ever fought in my life. I felt like I felt like it was full of air. I couldn't buy, like, we're shooting crossbow.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was full of air, like helium, actually, and I couldn't pull it down. I felt like it was hanging off the moon, and I couldn't pull the moon down.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I've never felt that in my life. It was the most crazy feeling ever. And
Yeah.
and I'm like, you got to get it together. Pull it together, man. This will never happen again.
Absolutely.
Like, don't screw this up, you know?
And it's funny, too, because, like, well, first of all, going into it, you're like, I've shot a lot of nice deer on Halloween night.
Yeah, I love Halloween night.
Right?
Yeah.
And just so happened that was Halloween night. But, like, you spend so many days leading up to it and weeks even having pictures of the deer being like, oh, it's so nice to get a picture of that deer. I'm never going to see him in person.
Yeah.
Right? Because, like, for a deer to get that big, they've avoided hunters in a heavily pressured area at that.
Ridiculous, yeah.
And for so long to get to that size.
Yeah.
And it's the first good buck that walks in.
Well, I don't know how much is good to talk about on these podcasts or who's going to hear it, but there is certain secrets that we have for how we hunt, where we hunt,
Absolutely.
that a lot of other people don't really clue in on.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of people, they think they understand deer rut, deer movement, deer cycles, deer whatever. But, I feel like after all of the years that I've spent in the woods, you kind of get a feeling for the better movement times of the year in our area, especially.
Yeah.
I don't know about south of the border in the United States. It's all the same though, technically speaking, based on when your actual breeding cycle is. A lot of people don't understand what the rut is, what the breeding cycle is, like lockdown, and then they go to seeking phase and all that. Like, there's a whole bunch of different things that happen during a deer rut. I feel like at that time of the year that the bucks are really traveling, moving, trying to figure out who's in the area, where they fit in the herd structure, who's the dominant bucks, and they like to mark their territory, and that's what they do. And to me, that's a vulnerable time for the whitetail.
Absolutely.
And so when a lot of other guys are like, shooting their bow or going to the archery lanes or whatever they're doing, I'm out in the woods hunting.
Absolutely.
And it's paid dividends over the years. I find that they're very call receptive that time of the year with the grunt tube and the rattling antlers, and they're traveling a lot, and they're seeking, looking, and they're just, figuring things out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, because, you think about it last year, maybe a little bit earlier, but that's about when Ryan got Mac.
Yeah.
Right? It was in that early seeking phase.
Right.
And in a spot where you just, I guess, wouldn't have really expected it, right? And those big bucks, those old bucks, they'll do that.
Yeah.
When you really think about it, hunting the rut itself kind of sucks.
Well, when they're breeding, it's on lockdown. It's
Yeah.
brutal. Yeah.
And that's why guys will say, the rut's off this year.
Right. Well, I got that one big one this year in lockdown, November 12th. Here is that's from about the 12th to the 15, 16 here is that's absolute no zone time, lockdown mode. If you're not on top of that hot dough, you're not seeing a big monster buck. Not typically.
Yeah.
And, I was in the right place at the right time. I know the area well, hunted it for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Had a lot of, knowledge of this buck, never ever seen him in daylight. And actually what got him killed was his doe.
Yeah.
I rattled antlers and she couldn't hold it, man. She wanted to see who else was around. And she got him in a whole world of trouble.
And funny about that, right? And because back to the theme of your best year ever, that was the one buck that we had in that area.
The number one buck.
The number one buck. List. You're like, he's the only one I'm really interested in.
Yeah.
And we never got daylight pictures of him. I saw him last year at last light.
Yeah.
And through a whole bunch of mesa branches and that would have been in August.
Yeah.
And he was out in the field with a couple of other bucks. And at the time, and looking at the footage, all I knew was, man, there's a really nice wide buck that we didn't really have a whole lot of intel on.
Ridiculously, insanely wide.
Yes.
Out of this world.
I know, and I remember thinking, I don't know if he's going to even score that much. And we don't really hunt for score.
No.
It's just cool to know afterwards, right? And I just thought, I don't know if he's going to score a whole lot, but he's wide.
Yeah. And this year, he was wider
Yeah.
and
more mass.
more mass.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, those really wide bucks don't always get really long points.
Yeah.
That would be like a next level, like world record type buck. But, he's 26 wide.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Actually, when you look at him, you look at his antlers, like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, every time you look at him, like, it's a month now almost, or I guess it would be. And every time I look at him, even now, I'm like, that thing looks ridiculous.
No, you just look at it and you're like, I don't know how a deer could really grow into that.
I feel like I did him a favor, a mercy killing.
Yeah.
I've never seen a deer with more wounds, bruises, and poke holes in his neck than that one.
Well,
in my
just
life.
his face. Like
Yeah.
in your trophy shots with him, like he just looks
Miserable.
Oh, he looks so grumpy and
Everything that was narrower than him was poking him everywhere.
Yeah.
But he couldn't stop fighting. Just ridiculous. A poor deer would just beat up something fierce.
And the only thing in life that deer loved was the doe that got him shot.
The one that got him shot. Yeah, he was super wide. What a nice buck, man. When I first saw him there, I was like, are you kidding me? That's him. That's the insane buck. Yeah, wide load.
Wide load, yeah.
Wide load.
And we still got one other one, tight curl. We're hoping to get him at some point, maybe next year.
Just a pathetic genetic deer.
Yeah, but I mean, it's your hunting age class, and it's if they had the genetics, they'd be 200 inches.
Yeah.
But they don't have the genetics, and I don't know if tight curl even makes 160 inches anymore.
Man, I don't know if he makes 150. I don't know.
But
there was maybe 1 year he did.
Yeah.
But we never did find his antlers from that year.
Yeah, that's true. And it's funny because like you think about giving a deer another year, sometimes it doesn't really make a difference.
Nope.
Like back to your 210 inch deer, and it's not 209 and change. It was
That's right.
It was 210 and 2/8, I believe, or 4/8. I can't remember.
Yeah,
but it was over 210.
It's over 210.
So we're not bringing it up.
Yeah.
We thought that deer was young.
Yeah.
Like looking at it, we're like, man, he doesn't have a whole lot of mass. He looks like he could probably have a bigger body. And then we looked at his teeth,
Yeah, they wore right out.
and you had to look for his teeth.
Yeah. We're going to send him away to get him aged.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how old that deer is, because I shot a deer in the same spot a few days later, and the body size dwarfed yours,
Yeah.
but his antlers were considerably smaller.
Yeah.
He was 140 buck.
Beauty.
Yeah, really nice buck.
Yeah.
And when he walked in, I saw 6 points on one side, and I thought, well, I'm not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth. I did that last year and ate my tag, so I'm not doing that again. And but his teeth look like they're in pretty good shape. But like we like to look at the pedicles on the antlers, and I know I've asked people before if they think that that's a good indicator of age, and it's very mixed reviews.
Right.
But when we look at deer that we've killed over the years, there is a theme.
Right.
And so we thought that my deer was old,
Yeah.
and looking at yours that it looked young.
Yeah.
But in reality, yours might have been older.
It's so
It's
hard.
really hard to tell.
I know. Like I've like, if you look through like at a spiker and his pedicles,
Yes.
they're not much bigger around than his spikes.
No.
You go to the next, 2.5 years old, 3.5, 4.5. You keep going up in years. The pedicles, where the antlers grow out of, that's what the pedicle is
Yeah,
on
the
the
space
skull.
between the antler and the skull.
Right. They get bigger and shorter with age.
Yes.
And, so basically if you take, and I've shot my share of spikers and forked horns,
Yeah.
2 points, whatever you want to call them. So I have a lot to compare with from over the last 30 something years.
Yeah.
And so when you take them all and you put all of those skull plates down on the bench and you look at them all, and comparatively speaking, you can see that every single year that deer grows older, they get bigger every year.
Yep.
And so when you get them in there, you can't wrap your fingers around the bottom of the pedicle. You got yourself an older age class deer.
Yeah,
And that's
absolutely.
kind of how I've always done it. Is it right? Probably not. I don't do much that is, I guess. I don't know, according to some people. But
Well, and the other thing too is like genetics are a funny thing with a deer. And the deer that you shot, maybe last year, he wasn't anything special,
right.
right? And he just had a year where just all of a sudden
Yeah.
wires crossed and it exploded.
Yeah.
Because we had a deer, and this also makes you getting a 200-inch deer feel sweet too.
Yeah.
With that deer Josh.
Yeah.
And we called him Josh because you said that he had your name on it.
Nobody else was allowed to shoot him but me.
And I had to, against my desire to, pass that deer 3 times.
Yeah.
We had like a dozen deer that I would have shot
Yeah.
on camera. It was an incredible
And
year
he
for
kept
bucks.
walking by you.
He's the only one that walked by me. 13 yards,
Right.
15 yards, stood right next to me forever, and he was easily 200 inches at the time, in full velvet.
Yes.
And the year prior, we thought he was like maybe 3.5, and he was kind of a goofy set of antlers, not much for points. He had G2s and main beams and kind of some junk, not really anything.
We want him to grow to 5.5 because we felt like he'd be a magazine buck.
Right? Because he was like 140 frame maybe,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden he was 200 inches, right?
Yeah.
For a 60-inch blow up in 1 year, that deer's got something special going on.
Yeah.
And we had a deer poached.
Yeah.
Off of the farm.
And he's the only one that never showed back up.
He's the only one that never came back.
Yeah.
And there is a chance that he's still alive, but I think it's pretty slim.
Pretty slim, yeah.
We had a buck a couple years ago that showed up after being gone for an entire year.
Yeah, and it is possible.
It is.
Not likely.
No.
Very unlikely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Yeah, and I'd really hope that we get to tell the story about how he came back at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, to have 2 monster bucks taken from you,
Yeah.
missing a giant,
Yeah.
in a gimme opportunity.
Yes.
It was a gimme. I got to sit in that stand and I was like, I don't know how he missed, right? Like, you don't even pull a shot that bad,
No, you can't. It's all the pins and pull.
right? Without drawing hair, at least.
Yeah.
Then having one that you were trying to grow poached,
Yeah.
and then the 5th, you
Right.
finally get to seal the deal on something that far and away blows out of the water your biggest buck that you've killed and gotten to take home.
It's pretty special.
Yeah.
It really is. I'm very thankful. I feel very blessed.
Yeah.
It's a dream come true. You know, it's all the same old, you know, yeah, that's spectacular. That's awesome. Woohoo, you know.
I know, because
Yeah.
I mean, we still even just sitting on the couch there earlier. You're like, hey, look at this big buck, and I look over. You're showing me pictures of your buck, and I'm like, yeah, I know he's big, man. Like,
Oh,
I
just
took the pictures.
Can't believe it.
Yeah,
Honestly,
I know.
yeah.
And it's hard to narrow down, like, out of all the hunts this year, which one was the best, you know? And having a year like you did, it's
Right.
you just look back at it all, and the whole thing just kind of
It's a blur, man.
yeah, it melts into
Yeah.
to one giant accomplishment, you know?
Yeah, I know it's incredible. However, you know, like all that being said, like of all the animals that I have mounted on my wall,
Yeah.
one of my most revered trophies that I have is a 5x5 bull elk that I shot many years ago.
Yeah.
That doesn't score 200 inches.
No.
I don't think he scores 180.
He's just your typical
And he hangs on my
5-point
wall,
bull.
and I'm proud of him, and he means a lot to me. And I've had many people come over and be like, "Why would you mount that?"
Yeah.
It's like, well, sit down, let me tell you this story.
Yeah, and that's
And the hair
thing.
still stands up on the back of my neck thinking about it to this day.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I know. And so to me,
So that was your first bull elk ever.
it was, yeah. Yeah, and I called him in on a string, and it's like, I'm proud of that bull.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says, you know. In fact, there's lots of deer that I have that are spikers and forked horns that I remember the hunt like it was yesterday, and it was like
Absolutely.
35 years ago, 36 years ago, and I'm still proud of it to this day.
I know. Well, because I know I show people, we all have an antler box,
Yeah.
and it's full of antlers.
Yep.
And you pull out every single set has a story attached
Every
to
one
it.
of them, I love it.
And you remember all these little details that it blows people away. Like, you can't remember this, but you remember how far that deer was and how far you
Right?
blood trailed
Yeah,
him.
That's
And,
the wife, right?
yeah, exactly.
I don't know, honey, but I remember when I shot that buck 32 years ago.
And my favorite part is when somebody's like, "You got a lot of antlers. Can I have a set?" No,
Absolutely not.
absolutely not. No, that's it's pretty cool to get to look back and
Or even that bad with our sheds.
yeah, that's
All
a
the
good
guys come
point.
over and ask me if they can have a set of rattling antlers, or can you give me an elk shed or a moose
Yeah.
shed? It's like, I don't think so.
No, oh, there was effort involved in finding that thing.
Well, I don't know. I guess it's the weird thing about hunters and hunting. I
I
guess
know.
I don't know.
Yeah, because I have sheds that I found, and I'm like, "Oh, this is such a cool shed," and then I'm just like, "Yeah, I'll let it sit in the box."
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
3/4 eaten by a squirrel, or
right?
a raccoon, or
you
something.
don't look at it for a while, but you still remember how you found
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
right? And that part of it's so cool. One thing I wanted to talk to you about, and I've wanted to talk to you about this for a long time, and record it. Archery hunting.
Yeah,
You were huge into archery hunting growing up.
right.
Killed an incredible amount of animals. You used to hunt the coveted Edmonton bow zone
Yeah.
quite a bit. And you whacked them and stacked them on whitetails, moose,
Yeah.
right? You name it. You were in there and you were getting it.
Yeah.
Over the years, we've lost permission.
Yeah.
Some of those areas have turned into housing developments.
Tons of them have.
Amazon facility, you used
Right.
to hunt there.
100%. Yeah.
And then when I was coming into hunting, we did some bow hunting, mostly for elk. We never really targeted deer with a bow that much. The odd time we'd sit in a tree stand, and you suffered an injury,
Yeah.
and it was getting to the point where you couldn't shoot your bow. And so I remember you being like, yeah, I'm not even going to go out this year because I can't shoot my bow. I'll just wait till rifle season anyway. And I remember giving you a hard time about it and being like, no, you just gotta get out there and do it. Try rehabbing it or something. Get out there and do it. And it just wasn't working. And you decided to, I don't want to say like swallow your pride, because it seems like people are forced into feeling that way, but you went and you got a disability permit, and so you were able to shoot a crossbow.
Yeah.
Huge unfair advantage for
Yeah.
for you with the animals, given how successful you are on a typical year.
Yeah.
But you weren't satisfied with just doing the crossbow thing, and eventually you were able to get back into shooting a bow, and you found one that works for you,
Right.
and you found success with it. Like what has, I guess, the journey of not being able to shoot to going back to being able to shoot and then having some incredible success with it? Let's explain that.
Well, you know, like through the course of my hunting career, I guess if you call it a hunting career, you know, I was a diehard bow hunter, big time. And when you have kids, you know, as a father, as most fathers do, like you kind of take the focus off of yourself and you put it on your kids. And so I kind of got out of the bow hunting in the beginning because I was more interested in trying to help you and Ryan get into bow hunting and to be successful. And bow hunting is something that requires a ton of time. It's really hard. In those days, we didn't have trail cameras. There's no such thing.
You had to do your own eyes.
Yeah, it was hard scouting, and so you only had so much time to scout so many areas to put so many different people into a good positive situation where they could be successful. And so it took away from the time for me to sit and be successful. So I kind of drew away from it a little bit more and got more into the rifle hunting because of it. But through an accident, a motor vehicle accident, and not wearing my seatbelt, never got ejected from the cab, but I got rolled around in it like a rag doll. Woke up on the floor by my pedals, and my shoulder was really bad, and so I couldn't do much. And then I got in a rollover in a side by side and got thrown out of the cab and made it even worse. And so then, couldn't lift my arm above my head for a couple of years. Actually,
it wasn't that you couldn't pull the bow back.
no, I couldn't hold it up. I couldn't even lift my arm up.
Yeah.
And so I, if I wanted to lift my left arm up, which is the one that I hold my bow with, I actually physically had to hold that arm up and lift it up with my right arm.
I remember the last few years before you went and got the crossbow permit. Well, even I guess it was a couple years between you stopped shooting bow and then getting the crossbow permit. But those last couple of years, I remember you telling me that just by shooting at the target, you couldn't pick up your bow for weeks.
Yeah, it was the pain.
Put too much
you
strain.
Couldn't do it. But in that one day we were out there, I mean, I still always bought a bow hunting permit and licenses and all that, right? Because it's still a part of me. And I remember that one year we went out there, it was we were hunting elk or whatever, and we come up on these two big bull moose, and I wasn't even carrying a bow because I knew I couldn't shoot it. And a friend of ours there, he's like, Josh, you've shot my bow before. You shoot it pretty good. And he had to physically, he held my arm up.
Yeah.
While he was like, okay, I'm like, okay, lower, as I pulled the bow back, and he was holding my arm up, and I was trying to get a shot off at this big bull moose. And so that desire never left, and then of course after realizing, after trying and failing many times that this is not going to work, I decided to, bite the bullet and go get a crossbow permit. And, and a lot of people are really negative and critical about it. But when you have a desire to hunt and you love to hunt, I mean, you're willing to do whatever it takes to get back in the woods. And so that's what I wanted to do.
And the opportunity's there.
It is there, so
Right.
why not, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, like
and you
what's-
shouldn't be made to
Yeah.
feel guilty about taking advantage of it. That's something that I don't like.
But through the course of it, I was rehabbing lots and,
Yeah.
trying to get back into it against all of the doctor's orders, that I was going to tear it worse and make it so I would never be able to lift my arm up.
Yeah.
And to get back to the point now where I shoot my bow again now for the last couple of years and love it, super excited about it. Not 100%, probably never will be again, but good enough.
Well, and I think, I guess to pat you on the back over it, it would have been a lot easier to just maintain the crossbow permit because it's easy to hunt with a crossbow.
It is by far easier than
right?
a compound.
It's not a gun,
No,
right? But it's also not a bow.
no, it's not. And
But it gives you much more of an advantage than a bow.
yeah, and haven't had a crossbow license for, I think I used a crossbow pretty hard for about 2 years, was it, or 3? I can't remember now, but
2 seasons, I think, for
2
sure.
seasons, yeah. And
Yeah.
the animals took a wicked beating.
Yeah, we had some
know.
pretty good years.
Yeah, and so, you know, a year ago, actually, I shot a 330 bull,
Yeah.
elk with my bow. Phenomenal. Super excited, super pumped. That was my first, you know, I shot bears earlier in the spring, but that was my first, hunting bears over a bear bait is a lot of fun, and especially selective bears.
Yes.
But to actually sit there and, you know, or to get a big bull elk, you know, like one-on-one.
There's more of a
mono.
challenge
Yeah, it
involved
was. It
there.
was tremendous, man. Like, that really lights a fire under your butt again, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the burning desire is there. It'll probably never leave. People don't understand what's wrong with me. I don't either, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, well, you know what? You're able to make the best of a not great situation and even further better that and get back into bow hunting. And I followed you around quite a bit with the camera this fall while you were holding a bow.
You did.
And didn't have the success that we hoped for or have had in the past. But you know what? We still got out there and we tried. And the fact that you're able to do it with a bow, I think that's pretty awesome. And I know watching you shoot something with a bow like that bull elk last year, and that was a really nice bull.
Yeah.
It made me want to get out there with the bow, right? And I think that it's awesome that you get to take advantage of that again. Having had your best year ever, it's hard to kind of measure up to that again next year. And I know a lot of guys think that once they've shot something that's an animal of a lifetime, they're like, well, yeah, I'm done. That's it for me. I know
I don't have that problem.
Yeah, I know for a fact that's not you.
No.
I guess trying not to get too far ahead, but looking forward to next year, is there something that you're like, you know what, I still haven't done this. I want to do this.
You know, every year to me is as exciting or more exciting than the year before.
Yeah.
On every level. I can't wait for bear season.
Yeah.
I can't wait for next elk, next moose, you know, because we get to chase them with the archery gear.
Yeah.
You know, general tag or whatever. I can't wait for all of it. I really can't. I get excited thinking about it every day. Yeah. It never leaves me. It's a disease.
I suppose. I mean, I think the only thing that we or you haven't accomplished yet is the bighorn.
Yeah, boy, that's high on the bucket list. Yeah,
we've tried.
Yeah,
you've tried even harder.
Yeah,
that's something I feel like I definitely want to make a push for that this year. I've been telling a lot of people that I'm shooting a sheep this year, and I know that it's easy to say that, but I'm determined that I'm going to, and I want to see you get one too, because we've tried that together a few times and it just didn't quite happen.
Yeah. It's a competitive world out there when it comes
really
to sheep
is.
here. It's a joke, actually.
It's, you know what's funny about that is guys think that the competition in elk hunting is bad. Mm-hmm. And I thought that too, and it still is. I still think it's bad. Because we see it where guys are like, yeah, I've been hunting here for however long. Get out of here. It's my spot. And you're like, it's public land.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And then when you and I, the first year we went sheep hunting together, we get back to camp the one day after glassing up some barely not legal rams.
And the guy's like, well, you might as well just wrap up your camp and leave because we're here now.
Yeah, they told us to go home.
Yeah, it's like, well,
and
sorry.
I remember you telling him, don't worry, buddy, I've got a pretty good rifle setup. If you're between me and the sheep, I'll just shoot over you. And he's like, oh, you're those type of guys. So, well, yeah, absolutely. We're here to get a sheep. We didn't walk all the way in here for nothing, you know?
Right.
And funny enough, you remember how we told that guy, yeah, that ram that we were all glassing up, he's not legal.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll take my chance. It's a sheep.
Yeah,
a sheep's a sheep.
Yeah.
And
they do let the odd guy get away with a squeaker, he thinks.
He thinks so, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess to him it was one of those things where I'll take my chances, whereas to us we were like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to take my chances. Yeah. And I don't think he ever did get one. I remember we sat on the hillside the next day and we watched that guy walk up and over this mountain and back over and over that draw and into that
Every
draw.
sheep within 20 miles was gone.
Gonzo. There was no chance that they were still in there.
Unreal.
And yeah, and to think that the elk hunting competition is bad, that the sheep hunting thing is just absolutely wild.
Yeah, no, it's next level competitive. It really is. I mean, you can understand it, I guess. And for me, I'm not a young buck anymore, so
It gets harder every year.
yeah, and my days are getting more and more numbered for doing those big mountain extreme adventures. Like, you know, a lot of people don't realize in Alberta,
Yeah.
you can't use ATVs, you
Yeah.
can't use electric bikes, you can't, it's 15, 20 miles with a pack of 50, 60 pounds on your back. That's without a sheep.
Yeah.
You get a sheep in there, you're going to have a nightmare getting out.
I know, I think about that all the time because, like, last year on our antelope hunt, we all packed our antelope out.
I never thought an antelope hunt could be so grueling.
Right?
Honestly, man, like it was like, wow.
Well, because the land is so flat. You're like, oh, it's not that far. And then 6 miles later,
You're still not there.
and you're like, it still looks like 6 more miles.
Yeah.
Right? And so throwing the antelope in the pack, and we didn't bring packs that were conducive to packing anything out.
Oh, that was dumb.
Right? And so then now I think about how small an antelope is and how big a sheep is.
Yeah.
And you're like, I got to carry that thing out however far it is that you got to go to
Yeah.
get back to the trailhead. And
We do take horses. We have taken horses, but you know,
that's
I'm
not easy either.
I'm not a cowboy.
No.
I don't claim to be, and I love my horses, but they can be a real mega pain in the butt too.
Absolutely. I remember one time we came back to camp and they were gone.
Yeah.
And
Like,
you've
way
had
out
it
of here.
before where they went back to the truck.
Yeah.
And so the first thing that you think of when you don't see your horses anymore is, oh boy, I'm in for something here.
This is gonna suck.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And luckily for us, we were able to find the horses.
Yeah.
They didn't go that far. That's why you try to spend time with your horses and have good horses. But all they were good for was hauling our gear in and hauling our gear out. And it would be pretty awesome to connect on a sheep. I know that it's been something you've dreamed of for a long time.
It has, yeah.
And I hope that we get to put our hands on some horns. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna.
Yeah,
100%.
I think so.
Oh yeah,
I mean, why not?
right? There's a 1% chance. There's a good chance. It's good enough for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up.
Alrighty.
I'm very happy that I got you to sit down and agree to do this.
Everybody's fast
Thank
asleep
you.
right now.
Oh no, you have some fascinating hunting stories. I told you earlier I could talk to you for 4 or 5 hours straight about hunting, and all of it would be very interesting. And I could keep it going even now. There's a lot that I'd like to ask you, but an absolutely incredible season, one
Yeah.
for the record books.
Right. I actually, after the season was over, I felt like, okay, what's going to happen to me now? What's going to go wrong?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
it went too good.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, okay, am I going to get struck by lightning now? What's
Right.
going to happen?
Yeah, an incredible elk, a really, really good bull moose, a deer of many lifetimes,
Yeah.
and another deer that age class wise is a deer of a lifetime.
Right. Yeah.
And I couldn't think of anything else that could have made the season go any better.
Yeah.
Congrats on an incredible year.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm very thankful that I got to be a part of a lot of it.
Yeah.
And
That was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
yeah, it really was. I know. I think back about it, and like I had some pretty cool hunting memories this year, and I got to share them with you too, with some animals that I killed. My biggest bull elk ever,
Yeah.
a really nice whitetail that we got to
Yeah,
kind of be
awesome.
together with,
Yeah, it was awesome.
and then another nice one
Right.
back to the same spot
Yeah.
that I had hunted so long ago and shot my first deer.
Yeah.
I had it. I think on my Instagram post I put it was like 5,800 and some days. That's a lot of time, and we've made a lot of memories between then and now. And
Back to the grassroots.
yeah, exactly.
Where it all begun.
It makes me want to go back out there again next year, and maybe we will. Who knows? But yeah, a lot of memories made between then and now, and I know that we're going to make a lot more great memories in this coming spring and this coming fall. The possibilities are endless, like you said. Every year is a new year, and you never know what's going to happen. And I'm really excited for it. And thank you so much for doing this, Dad.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Good afternoon and good morning.
Take care, guys. Thanks for listening, and thanks for watching. On the Blood Trail has been brought to you by Man Mountain Company. Experience peak flavor and use code BLOODTRAIL to save on your next order over at manmountainco.com.